Om Nama Srashtham Manumapi Shachi Putram Atra Swarupam Rupam Tasyagrajam Urupurim Mathurim Goshtabhatim Radha Kundam Girivaram Aho Radhika Madhavasham Prapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Sri Guru Natosmi Adi Pratipalitah Prabalitah Sanandamanokitah Pratyashang Sumanah Falodaya Vidho Samodamamoditah Vrindaranya Bhuvi Prakasha Madhurah Sarvatishayi Sriya Radha Madhavayo Pramodayatu Mam Ulalasa Kalpadramaha Sri-rūpa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath Sri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunath E Choi Gosaira Kori Charana Bandhan Jaha Hoite Vignash Abhishta Puram Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai Shri Radhe Jai Shri Radhe Jai Shri Radhe Jai Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. So, we're going on with the Priti Sandarbha. So Priti Sandarbha here, we're at, still in the first Anuched, but the fourth division. And this fourth division, we're calling it, the word mukti truly applies only to Priti. So already there have been several thought strands here. And to observe Jiva Goswami, how Jiva Goswami's mind is working, his encyclopedic knowledge of the Srimad Bhagavad, knowing exactly where the problems lie, where the confusions might be, and also where the clarifications can be found. So after going through the previous introductory portions, he now says that the last place that we came to was again Ananda Brahmano Vidvan Nakutascha Bhibyati. So the person who knows the absolute truth, the person who knows the bliss of Brahman, he is situated in fearlessness, that fear being the symptomatic word for the material condition. When one sees duality, when one is situated in the Advaya Tattva, one is immersed in the bliss of Brahman, then which is beyond description, then one is no longer fearful of anything, because one is situated in immortality, whether one is in the body or whether one has left the body. And this discussion will come up shortly. At any rate, he starts this portion now with the words Esha eva cha mukti-śabdārthaḥ. Esha eva cha mukti-śabdārthaḥ. Saṁsāra-bandha-ccheda-pūrvakatvāt. So this anandang brahmano vidvan, this direct experience of the bliss of Brahman, that is here, according to Jiva Goswami, the real meaning of the word mukti. So that is the subject. This the title that we're giving to this section is the word mukti truly applies only to Priti, or to this. Well, if we follow the logic of the discussion as it's been going so far, started out by saying that the attainment of happiness and the elimination of suffering is the supreme goal of life. And now his goal now is to explain how that comes about in more detail. He wants to establish that Priti is the Atyantика, the final or ultimate attainment of happiness and the ultimate destruction of material suffering. So mukti, generally speaking, is expressed in negative terms, that the elimination of suffering. We have nirvana, for instance, the Buddhist term, the idea that one is free from the suffering. The first noble truth of the Buddha was that dukkhaṁ, that the world is a place of suffering, and that one can eliminate the suffering. But he doesn't talk about a positive view. And of course, the statement is there in the Advaitavada, in some of the early texts of Advaitavada, Gaurapada, that in actual fact, what is called nirvana by the Buddhists is Brahma. There's no difference. It makes this it's really the same tattva. So this indeed is the meaning of the word mukti, because direct realization of the supreme reality is preceded by the cessation of material bondage, or saṁsāra-bandha-ccheda-pūrvakatvāt. So he's made that commentary. That's the reason, the argument he's making. Why is mukti there? Because the two things are connected. But the idea here is, although we're talking that in actual fact the ultimate elimination of suffering comes upon realization of the absolute, of attaining this ananda, that nevertheless, before sunrise comes the dawn, before we see the sun, the light has come, and the light has already eliminated the unknown, the ignorance of what is there, and so the sources of suffering. So now he quotes a verse here, yathoktaṁ śrī-sūtena, a verse from the 12th canto. So the 12th canto is, this verse is said that yadaivam etena viveka-hetinā māyā-mayāhaṅkaraṇātma-bandhanam chittvācyutātmānubhavo'vatiṣṭhate tam āhur ātyantikam aṅga samplavam. So the verses that mostly that Jiva is going to quote in this connection are verses that do have a little bit of, many verses in the Bhagavatam have that dual interpretation. Since he started out by saying that Brahmeti, Paramātmeti, Bhagavaniti, Shabdate, that you have these three aspects of the Supreme. Many of the verses in the Bhagavatam can be read either way. But Jiva Goswami is at pains to say that if we're going to talk about Brahma, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, well, there's a hierarchy of experience here. And that since Brahman is the supreme truth without any attributes, without any varieties, without the expression of any potencies, that therefore it's limited in this in its capacity to bring joy, to bring bliss, whereas Bhagavan, being the supreme with the full expression of attributes and full expression of powers, of shaktis, the Hladini, Sandini, and Sangvit potencies are all being expressed fully in Bhagavan, that therefore the bliss of Bhagavan far exceeds the bliss of Priti. The bliss of Bhagavan is called Priti. So that bliss is far exceeding anything that can be had by the Brahmavadi, by one who attains the mukti of Brahma realization. So for us, the word mukti doesn't mean, the word mukti in actual fact means Priti. The word mukti cannot be simply oneness with Brahman or identity with Brahman. So this verse is interesting. He says that yadaivam etena viveka-hetinā māyā-mayāhaṅkaraṇātma-bandhanam chittvācyutātmānubhavo'vatiṣṭhate āhur ātyantikam samplavam aṅga samplavam. So when a person with this sword of discrimination thus cuts away the bondage of the self brought about by the phenomenal ego produced by Maya, and becomes situated in immediate realization of the infallible Atma, that state, O dear King, is called ultimate dissolution. So I believe that the context here in the 12th canto is that of the dissolution of the universe. He's talking about different kinds of the universal at the different stages, after the life of Brahma, after a day of Brahma, and so on. There are dissolutions of the universe. And so here, the conclusion of that section is when Markandeya, when Sutta explains to Maharaj Parikshit that the ultimate dissolution of the universe takes place when one is free from ignorance and when one has acyutātmānubhavo. So this acyutātmānubhavo is one of these words that can have an ambiguous explanation. Right? Achyuta means infallible. Now, Atma, well, the word Atma is always problematic because Atma has several different levels of meaning. We saw yesterday a couple of uses of ātmani and ātman, drishta eva ātmani ishvare, to see in the Atma, which is the Ishvara, or to say pashyanti ātmani chatmanam, seeing the Atma in the Atma. So when you see the Atma in the Atma, this is the reason that was brought up in yesterday's discourse, was because Jiva Goswami was saying that the seeing of the self in the self. So which self is which self, right? So we talk about a supreme self, the paramātmani, and the individual self, the jiva-atma. So when one sees the jiva-atma in the paramātmani, this is what was the intention there, because Jiva Goswami was saying that one's self-knowledge arises when one sees the paramātmani, when one sees the Supreme Lord, when one has when one has direct knowledge and experience of the Supreme Lord, of the Supreme Brahman, of the Supreme Atma, the paramātmani, then one's self-knowledge follows as a consequence of that, as the result of that. When one recognizes, I believe we mentioned that yesterday, when one has a particular attraction to a particular form of the Supreme, then it naturally follows that one has a particular identity that accompanies it. If one sees Krishna as being the most beautiful, handsome, dancing actor, the player of the flute, and so on, well, these are all uddipanas, or inspirators for the Madhura Rasa. So if you look at Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, when it goes through the 5 main different kinds of relationships, in each one it always starts by saying that this is the Vishaya Alambana, the Vishaya Alambana of the particular rasa. So Krishna's form, Krishna's identity changes for each rasa. The way that the gopis see Krishna, and the way that Mother Yashoda sees Krishna, and the way that Krishna's friends see Krishna are all slightly different. And because the form that Krishna reveals to those individuals is one that is particularly appropriate to their mood or to their rasa. So it's the form that reveals itself to one is the very form that also reveals the identity of a person in his relationship with Krishna. So here the word acyutātmānubhavo, anubhavo means experience, and atma means the self, and achyuta means infallible. So we translate that here in immediate realization of the infallible self, or the infallible atma. That is called, and the second important word in this verse is the ātyantikam aṅga samplavam, that this is the ultimate dissolution. So the word samplavam here which means the immersion. We often talk about the merging. So it's a kind of the ultimate merging, the final merging. So from the point of view of Advaitavada, the verse could be easily interpreted to say that when one cuts away the bondage that is a result of ego created by illusion, that then one comes face to face with the infallible self, and that is the ultimate merging into Brahman. But of course, Jiva Goswami doesn't like that. And so he says, acyutākhye ātmani paramātmani anubhavo yasya tathābhūtaḥ sann avatiṣṭhate yathoktaṁ atyantikam samplavam muktim āhur ityartha. So he says that achyuta, the phrase, the infallible Atma, acyutātmā, should here be understood to mean the Supreme Self or Paramatma named Achyuta. And Krishna's name is Achyuta, or Bhagavan's name is Achyuta. So he says that the direct experience of the Supreme Self, known as Achyuta, that is the correct understanding of that phrase, acyutākhye. And so the state of a living entity who, after cutting away bondage through discrimination, is firmly situated in realization of him, namely the Supreme Self or Paramatma named Achyuta, is called ultimate dissolution, ātyantikam samplavam, which is the word for mukti. So here, let's see what Babaji says. The true meaning of mukti or moksha is becoming free of beginningless ignorance about the absolute and one's own self, and thereby becoming free of all types of miseries without any possibility of their reappearance. Panchadashi, so Panchadashi is famous, I've forgotten the name of the author, it's anyway, an early Shankarite Acharya, and a very well-loved book of the Advaitavadins. So Panchadashi similarly defines mukti. So he says, muktistu brahmatatvasya jnanad eva na chanyata swapna bodhang vina naiva swapno hiyate yatha. So just as one cannot become free of a dream without becoming aware of its being a dream, mukti is similarly attained only by immediate intuition of Brahman and not by any other means. So let's go on. The idea there is that one has to have knowledge of one has to be aware that one is in a state of illusion before one can become free of the illusion. So that is why the idea, what was being explained here, it was that saṁsāra-bandha-ccheda-pūrvakatvāt. So that realization of the Supreme has to be preceded by, even though that preceded by might just be very, very momentary, but nevertheless one has to be liberated before one can see the Supreme Truth. As long as one has still any coverings over the self, coverings of ignorance, one cannot see him. So that so ata muktir hitvanyatha rupam swarupena vyavastiti. So this is the famous definition of mukti that's given in the second canto, in the 10th chapter, when the contents of the Bhagavatam are being delineated by Shukadev to Maharaj Parikshit. So it says, muktir hitva anyatha rupam swarupena vyavastiti. So the important word here is swarupa. The same expression, this is very similar to the Yoga Sutras, where it says swarupavastanam, that when it talks about the yoga, when the chitta vrittis have ceased, that then the purusha, the individual self, is situated in its own true essential state of being. So this is when we talk about swarup. Swarup is a bit of a difficult word to pin down, but generally speaking, we translate it by essential nature. So one's essential nature, that's one's swarup. So he says, mukti-hitva rupam. So when one has given up identity with any other, anyatha means any other kind of identity, then and is situated firmly in one's swarup. So in the previous verse that we saw, we had avatisṭhate. So vyavastiti and avatisṭhate, they're cognate, being firmly situated in awareness of the acyutātma. That was what was stated in the Bhagavad 12th canto verse. And now here we have this mukti-hitva rupam swarupena vyavastiti. So when one is free from any other identity, Maya is eliminated, and the Maya identities are all eliminated, and one is situated in one's essential nature, then that is called mukti. So he says here that mukti-hitva rupam swarupena vyavastiti iti etad api tat-tulyartham eva. So he's saying this is the same, gives the same meaning. Yatah swarupena vyavastitir nama swarupa sakshatkara uchyate. Tad avasthana matrasya saṁsāra-dashayam api sthitatvat. So here he's bringing up the idea of jivan mukti, because he says that why is it the same meaning? Why does this particular shloka have the same meaning as the previous one? He says because being situated in one's swarupa means to have direct experience, sakshatkar, direct experience, again, same word, of one's essential nature, of the swarupa. And even that can happen even when one is in this material body, in this material world. One can still have that kind of awareness of one's true identity. So, anyatha rupa tvasya cha tad agyana matrarthatvena tadhano tadjnana paryavasanat. So when one eliminates the other forms, when one eliminates other identities, then that means that all ignorance is gone, and when all ignorance is gone, then one will ultimately attain to knowledge. Well, so the statement mukti means to be established in one's true essential nature after abandoning identification with all that it is not, has the same meaning, because to be situated in the swarupa means to realize one's own innate nature or constitutional position. Otherwise, even in the state of material bondage, one is situated in one's swarupa. All that it is not here means ignorance of one's constitutional position. To abandon that is synonymous with realizing the swarupa. So Babaji says, Shukadev gives another definition of mukti cited in the Anucheda. To be situated in one's swarup after discarding the foreign nature is called mukti. This seems to be a different definition than the one given above, but Sri Jiva clarifies that there is no contradiction between them. To be situated in one's own swarupa means to be aware of who and what one really is. This is possible when one has become free from beginningless ignorance, and that can happen only by the immediate experience of the Absolute. Otherwise, everybody is situated in their own swarupa, even in the state of ignorance. Where else can one be situated? If that were the case, then everyone should be liberated according to Shukadev's definition, but that is certainly not the case. Therefore, the meaning of being situated in one's swarupa is to be aware of oneself and of the Absolute. So I made a bit of a mistake here when I was reading it. By saying that, he says that he was saying here, Yata kaswarupena vyavastiti nama swarupa sakshatkara uchyate tad avasthana matrasya saṁsāra-dashayam api sthitatvat. So to be situated in one's swarup is the state of everyone. You can't be what you're not. The nature of the jiva is eternal. And so even when he's in the conditioned state, he's still going to be situated in his swarup. So it requires knowledge. And without knowledge, that knowledge is to be situated in one's swarup means to have knowledge. That's what so that's the point of clarification that's being made. If you talk about the distinction between the two meanings. Because the first verse that he quoted contained the words knowledge in it, and anubhavo, that acyutākhye. So that was the difference between to be situated in one's swarup. Here he's saying means to be aware of both oneself and of the absolute. All right, so now he goes on. So he says here, now adding some interesting more features here. He says, Swarupam cha atra mukhyam paramātma lakshanam eva. So, moreover, the primary meaning of the word swarup is nothing other than the paramatma. So the swarupam has the characteristic of being the paramatma. How is that? Rashmi paramanunam surya iva sa eva hi jivanam paramo angshi swarupa. Radhe, Radhe. Moreover, the primary meaning of the word swarupa is the paramatma. This is because the paramatma alone is the supreme whole of which the living entities are parts, like the sun in relation to its rays. So that's Babaji explains here. It should be understood furthermore that awareness of one's swarup is not possible without awareness of the absolute. This is because the jiva is a part of the absolute, and knowledge of a part is not complete without knowing its relation to the whole. That's why we have saṁsāra-bandha-ccheda-pūrvakatvāt. According to Shukadev, the absolute is the substratum or support of everything. Knowledge of the superstratum or supported is not possible without the knowledge of the support, just as knowledge of sunlight is not complete without knowledge of the sun. Therefore, being situated in one's swarup signifies having knowledge of both the self as well as the absolute, the paramatma. In the Paramatma Sandarbha, it was explained that the jiva is a part of Paramatma and not of Bhagavan. There's an important little footnote here. The jiva is a part of Paramatma, so the tatastha Shakti and the bahiranga Shakti, those are aspects of the Paramatma and not aspects of Bhagavan. Bhagavan is uniquely situated in the Swarup Shakti, the Antaranga Shakti. The jiva cannot be a part of Brahman because Brahman has no parts. Interesting point. If, however, it is sometimes stated that it is so, then the word Brahman should be taken as indicative of the Paramatma. So, we go on with another verse. He says, yathoktaṁ brahmanam prati srimata garbhodakshayina. So in the third canto, 9th chapter, 33rd verse, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu says the following to Lord Brahma. Yada rahitam ātmanam bhutendriya gunāśayaiḥ swarupena mayopetam apashyan swarajyam richati. Again, an interesting verse with a twist to it. And especially here we have a problem that Sridhar Swami has given an interpretation that Jiva Goswami does not accept. So here it says that yada, when, rahitam atmanam bhutendriya gunāśayaiḥ. So bhuta means the 5 gross elements, indriya means the senses, guna means the material qualities, and āśayaiḥ means the inner receptacle, means the antahkarana, the mind, or the chitta. So when one sees, pashyan, when seeing the atma, the self, as being free from all these coverings that are produced by Maya, to go back to the previous verse, then, and sees swarupena maya-upetam, then swarajyam richati. So he sees, and at the same and sees the self to be accompanied by me, its own true self-identity. One attains to sovereignty. So this word swarajya is, so the two interesting come in the second line where he says, swarupena maya. So swarupena and maya, those are both in the instrumental case. And they're both they're together, they're in apposition. So by me, who am the swarupa, that's what it means. And upetam means accompanied by. So upetam has several meanings. I'll go to that in a minute. But here, one who sees, one who's free from the external false, the anyatha rupam, the coverings of the five elements, the senses, the gunas, and the inner receptacle of thoughts and feelings, and at the same time accompanied by me, its own true self-identity, one attains to sovereignty or swarajya. So here the word upetam, he says upetam yuktam ityeva krishto arthaha. So he says the upetam means accompanying, which alone is not a forced interpretation. So klishtartha is, generally speaking, a criticism that is leveled at people who make a forced interpretation of some text. And so usually if something is, it's like the Occam's razor. So Occam's razor requires that one gives the most simple and straightforward explanation. And if an explanation is too complex or too, is somehow or another has too many moving parts, then it's to be rejected. So that idea of Occam's razor, you could say, is summarized by the word aklishtarthata, the freedom from forced interpretation. So here the word upeta, and so here Sri Jiva Goswami contradicts Sridhar, who has given an Advaitavad interpretation to this verse. He glosses upetam as eki bhutam, the oneness of the pure individual soul, or the you, the tvam padartha, with its true nature itself, which is me. So it's giving a very, the tat tvamasi. The tat tvamasi, when you're talking, in the Advaitavadins often talk about tvam padartha and tat padartha. So the tat tvamasi, in that sentence, that you are that, which is the famous Mahavakya of the Brahmavadis, of the Upanishads, says you are that. So tvam, Shvetaketo, you are, oh Shvetaketo, you are that tat. So you are that Brahman. That's the basic idea. So tat means Brahman, and tvam means the individual soul. So the identification of the two, tat tvam asi. So here, what Sridhar Swami has done, he said, here's this atmanam jivam shuddha tvam padartham. So he uses that expression. So the shuddha tvam padartham means the jiva. So the jiva is the individual. So the pure soul, the pure individual, swarupena swasya atma-bhūtena maya. So there he says maya, meaning swasya atma-bhūtena maya. So swarupena, he's saying that Krishna, who is in the verse, is saying maya, by me, that is the swarupa bhutena, that is the atma bhutena, is the actual self of the self, right? And it's the true self of the individual, the Brahman. And so eki bhutam, so then he takes the word upetam to mean eki bhutam, it's become one with it. So that's, the two have become entirely one. So the word upeta, if you look at the word upeta, what it's derived from, upa and ita. So I dhatu means to go, and upa means to go near. So most of the times upeta refers to going to the guru, or taking shelter of the guru. Taking shelter is probably a better meaning. But it can be also has the idea of being accompanied by or to be joined with. So it doesn't have the meaning in the dictionary of becoming one with. So because of that, because it doesn't follow the dictionary definition, Jiva's criticism seems to be justified, and calling it klishtartha, and saying that the aklishta meaning would be to take it as yuktam, or joined with, or accompanying, or just to be with, to be near to, or to be taking shelter of, that kind of thing. So, jiva-svarupasyaiva gonanandatvam darshitam. So now the next thing is that this is the second part, because now the question, I think we already discussed it previously, the idea that the jiva, being a part of Brahman, also possesses the qualities of Satchidananda. So quite often people will argue, people who are afflicted by Advaita doctrine, they will say, well, the jiva has ananda in it. So self-realization, just knowing the atma without any reference to any god. Just like Krishnamurti is one of these guys. Anyway, one has no need to any, that actually the reference to God is dualism, and therefore is a distraction from the actual transcendence of the self, and is a part of the conditioned state, as part of Maya. So God is only a part of one's, a state of being in which one thinks of God, and so on. But this is a part of the illusory state, and that one has to become totally immersed into Bhagavan. And when one's tat and tvam become united, and one merges and gives up one's illusory concept of one's individuality as a jiva, or as an individual soul. So Jiva Goswami is going to argue differently, and using the Bhagavatam here it says that jiva-svarupasya, so the swarupa of the jiva, gonanandatvam, so now this jiva-swarupa, so we're using a little bit of vocabulary playing here. You have to understand that almost all these words have this dual sense. So the mukhya artha of the swarupa Jiva just finished saying was in the Paramatma. Bhagavan is the true swarupa, because one's can only the part can only know itself by knowing the whole and its relationship to the whole. But here we were talking about ananda. And we've identified the swarup, the paramatattva, as being identified as being pure ananda, as being ananda in its nature, through and through, permeated by ananda, anandamaya, anandamayo vyasat. The supreme truth is anandamaya. So here he says that swarupa, the jiva-swarupa, now he's talking about the jiva, the individual soul, not talking about the paramatma-swarupa. So the jiva-swarupa is the gonanandatvam, that it has, its joy is secondary. So how is that so? Well, now he's going to talk about that from verses in the Bhagavatam, in the 10th canto. This is coming from the 14th chapter, which you may recall is the Brahma Stav. So Lord Brahma has finished praying here, and after finishing his prayers, then Maharaj Parikshit asks a few questions of Shukadev, and Shukadev is explaining that whole Leela, that whole story of the Krishna taking the forms of the cows and the cowherd boys, and the way that the Vrajavasis interacted with their own children when their own children were really just forms that Krishna had taken. So here was the point there was then, so Shukadev answers that with a rather elaborate argument, and what Jiva does here, he gives the conclusion. I think it's 10 verses altogether that are let's see, from verse 50 to 57. So 7 verses are 7 or 8. Was it 7? 1, 2, 3, 5. Yeah, so there's 8 verses here in which Shukadev answers Maharaj Parikshit's question. Maharaj Parikshit's question was, why did the Brajavasis love their own children more when Krishna had taken those forms? So now that elaborate answer that was given by Shukadev, we don't have time really to go into all of it here. It's a really it's a fantastic section. Let's see, but let's go to the conclusion, and you can go and look at that. It's 10th canto, chapter 14, verses 50 to 57. But we're just going to look at 54 and 55. That's really good. So, tasmat priyavata, I'll look at the whole verse here. So, tasmat priyatamah swatma sarvesham eva dehinam tadartham eva sakalam jagat chaitat characharam. So this is going back, we'll go back and I'll give a link to, I talked about this once on my blog, but the idea of the self is a famous verse also in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. It's actually repeated twice, where Gargi and Yajnavalkya are talking, and Yajnavalkya tells Maitreyi, excuse me, that everyone is doing everything for the self, for love of the self. So this passage is a reprise of that Upanishadic truth, and the story of Brahma stealing the cows and cowherd boys and calves. That this is actually a narrative, a parable that has that insight at its core. So, what is that? He says that tasmat priyatamah swatma. So the concluding part, what he says first. So therefore, the most dear thing is one's own self. Right? The most dear thing is one's own self. That's the point that's being made. But even though one's dearmost thing is the self, why is Krishna more dear? Why was Krishna more dear to the Brajavasis? Because Krishnam enam avehi tvam ātmanam akhilatmanam jagat hitaya sopyatra dehi vabhati māyā. So again, Maya. So he's saying, so let's just read the translation here. After saying, therefore, all embodied beings consider their own self to be supremely dear, Shukadev says, you should know this Krishna to be the self of all selves. Atmanam akhilatmanam. For the benefit of the world, he appears here just like an embodied being by the influence of his Maya. Right? So the gopis also say, when they're speaking in the Pranaya Gita, they say that Preshta, you are the Preshta, you are the most dear, and you are the Atma of all beings. So you are the soul of the soul. So the idea that one's own identity, one's own spiritual identity is the Svarupa, but the Svarupa is based on a higher Svarupa. The higher Svarupa is the self of the self, and that's Krishna. So Babaji says, Sri Jiva makes a very important point here. He says that the primary Svarupa of the Jiva is Paramatma. In other words, knowledge of the self alone is not sufficient to make one free of beginningless ignorance. Therefore, as a consequence, he says that the bliss of jiva-svarupa, i.e. the jiva in itself without reference to the Supreme, is secondary. The primary bliss is attained from the swarup of Paramatma, who is the whole. The bliss that's present in the jiva is anumatra, is just a drop. And the pleasure of the absolute of the Paramatma is like an ocean. So, thus those who pursue a spiritual process independent of bhakti cannot hope to get mukti, at least not the mukti that we're talking about here. Mere self-realization will not bring one to the ultimate liberation, nor will it award unending, unlimited bliss. A jiva is atomic in size in comparison to the Paramatma or Bhagavan, who is like an unlimited ocean. Thus, the bliss of self-realization without direct experience of Bhagavan is to be recognized as meager. All this has been discussed at length in Paramatma Sandarbha 29. So, yes, jiva parayor abhedavadastu paramatma sandarbhado visheshatopi parihitosti. So this idea of the absolute oneness, the philosophy of non-difference, of absolute non-difference between the jiva and the paramatma has been specifically refuted in the Paramatma Sandarbha. That's section 29. Look it up. So there, and we'll conclude the section today with another reference to Taittiriya Upanishad. And this is an important, very, very important section that we hear all the time. The Vaishnavas just love this section, this point of the Taittiriya Upanishad, but it has a very important tattva within it. That the Brahmavadis, I referred the other day to this Atma Tattvananda, that Swamini, who was lecturing on Taittiriya Upanishad on this particular section, on this particular anuvak. So he says, Ataeva niradharya shrutihi raso vaisaha rasanghi vayam labdhva anandi bhavati. So that states the conclusive statement of the Shruti in the matter of the jiva being secondary in bliss and distinct from the supreme is he, raso vaisaha, he, the supreme reality, is indeed rasaha. So rasa means the source of bliss. And attaining this rasa, one becomes blissful. So the one who becomes blissful is the jiva. So on attaining this rasa, one becomes blissful. So there's a duality is being stated here, a permanent duality on attaining this rasa. So here Babaji nicely explains this. He says, an objection may be raised to this previous argument about the gona ananda in the jiva. There is no difference between the jiva and the absolute. This is the argument. The jiva is nothing but the absolute, conditioned by the upadi of the body, just as a part of the sky is enclosed in a pot. So he's expressing the Advaita position. When the pot is broken, then the sky, both in the pot and outside it, are one. Similarly, when the jiva becomes free of conditioning, then it is one with Brahman. Thus, Mundaka Upanishad says, Brahma Veda Brahmaiva Bhavati. The one who knows Brahman verily becomes Brahman. In this way, it is wrong to say that self-realization is inferior and different from realization of the Absolute. That is the Purva-paksha. So Sri Jiva Goswami writes that this understanding of absolute oneness between the Jiva and Brahman has been refuted earlier in Paramatma Sandarbha, to which the reader is referred. It is further refuted by the Taittiriya Upanishad statement that declares Bhagavan to be rasa, and that only after attaining rasa does one become blissful. There is certainly a difference between one who attains rasa and the rasa itself. So we have the famous statement. This is coming now. The famous person who made this statement famous was Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. Says that the sugar can mix with water and become one with the water, but to taste sugar is more delightful than to be sugar. So this is exactly correct from our point of view. That's that the duality of Bhagavan and Jiva, that this separation makes all bliss possible. Now, Krishna is the rasa raj, the akhila rasamrita murti, and the jiva is the one who has the great good fortune of being able to taste this rasa when he is imbued with the Hladini Shakti. The Hladini Shakti gives one the power to give and to receive joy to the Supreme. So there's certainly a difference between one who attains rasa and the rasa itself. The two cannot be absolutely one. Moreover, the word used by the Upanishad is after attaining, labdva, rasangyevayam labdva, and not after knowing, gyatva. If there were absolute oneness between Jiva and Brahman, then it would have said after knowing and not after attaining. So there's a subtle distinction there. But knowing means I already know what's already there. But labdva means attaining something that is not there. So that's the difference between the two. All right. So that was a little bit, we finished there. So that was what I did this time. I split up the Babaji's commentaries a little bit more exactly between the passages, so that they're not separate. I think that was a good idea, and we'll try to do that every day. Also, I'm looking at the Haridas Shastri and Pran Gopal Goswami's very excellent. Pran Gopal Goswami's translation and commentary on Priti Sandarbha is absolutely first class. So let's call it a day today. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaः, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Purnam madah purnam midam, purnat purnam udachyate, purnasya purnamadaya purnam eva vashishyate. Jai Jai Sri Radhe, Jai Jai Sri Radhe Shyam. Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari.